My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to this episode of Legally Clueless. Here's what's coming up.
I had a partner, he was older. For me, sex was very different. It was extremely painful. So that first experience, it didn't sit right with me. And I decided to tell myself, let me give it another go. But then I noticed that every time we tried, it did get worse. My bladder flaring up for reasons unknown. Ovariances can be very unkind to anyone who's sexually active. I know even younger Annkia was so happy for the first time in forever. Since I started experiencing pain as a child, I met someone who actually understood what I was saying. And let me tell you, when we did the ultrasound in January this year, there was a tumor the size of a house in my bladder, right there. The person we found in that radiology department, this person turned the screen and he told me, did you know you have a tumor?
That is part 2 of Annkia's story. We're going to jump into that a little later in this episode. But welcome. If you are an OG, old school member of this family, I've got nothing but love for you. If you are a newbie here, welcome to Legally Clueless Africa. We have so many shows for you to enjoy. So on Mondays, we have this show where we have different Africans, primarily African women, come on and share stories of their lived experience. On Wednesdays, we have the Midweek Teas where I unpack different topics that I think can be helpful if you're on your journey of awakening as an African woman. Our newsletter also goes out on Wednesdays as well. You can sign up for that on our website. A link is in the show notes. And on Thursdays, we have For Mannerless Women. Currently, we have a very, very exciting special bonus season where we're going to different African countries outside of Kenya and speaking to some of my favorite African women. For Mannerless Women is a space where you can get all the inspiration and expertise to be your true self and to define womanhood for yourself, despite what society has laid out as the only way to woman. No. You can design womanhood for yourself. The first episode, we were in Ghana with one of my favorite authors. I have read one of her books 4 times, The Sex Lives of African Women. Oh, it's incredible. Currently reading her second book called Seeking Sexual Freedom. Her name is Nana, and we had such a powerful conversation on pleasure, freedom, and the myth of the good woman. She doesn't exist, guys. She doesn't exist. Here's a snippet of the conversation we had.
I would say in my 20s, I basically conformed. I married the first man I had consensual sex with and was in a relationship with him for many years until I was like, wait, what does this mean? Am I not going to sleep with anybody else for the rest of my life? And the answer was, yeah, I don't want to be like I don't want to have one sexual partner for the rest of my life, which is basically what I'd been told I needed to do as a good girl. Mm-hmm. And that meant leaving the relationship and then also giving myself space and time to explore. And, in quotes, sow my wild oats, which is something I had always had men being encouraged to do, but women not being encouraged to do. And that meant going against everything I had been taught, right? Like, we're not taught to sow our wild oats. We are taught the opposites, that we are bad woman if we have multiple sexual partners, if we're not in committed relationships, And so I made the intention to be a bad girl. Like, it was a deliberate choice because I had now realized that all the things I had been told, like, first of all, men will gossip about you regardless of what you do. There were people claiming to have had sex with me when I was still sexually inactive, so yeah. I realized that in a sense, being a good girl did not protect me from being gossiped about. And so I was just like, let me just really do my own thing and then really not care what people say about me. And that was like a huge change in my life.
That is the episode that went out last week. Make sure you catch it right here on the Legally Clueless Africa channel. And this week, For Mannerless Women is going to South Africa. If you are a spiritual babe, If you are into, like me, ancestral healing, ancestral cleansing, ancestral callings, this episode is going to be incredible. Think DJ who also happens to be an ancestral healer. How freaking cool is that? That's going to be out this Thursday. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this on so you never miss any of our shows. Okay, let's jump into this episode of this show. Last week, we met Annkia, all right? And she shared what it was like growing up with chronic pain, right? For most of her life, she lived with symptoms that nobody seemed to be able to explain. And it ended with her having about 5 different surgeries, just years of pain since she was 9 years old, consultations with specialists who still didn't have answers. And as she got older, the symptoms became harder to ignore. In part 2, Annkia shares what happened when she finally met a doctor who listened, and she shares what they discovered after years of searching for answers and how her life changed almost overnight. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
Because I told my sister, it doesn't make sense. I don't think, as much as I know ovarian cysts can be painful and this sick bladder can be painful, a bladder infection can be painful, it can't be this painful where you get to the point where walking for 5 minutes, you feel like you're tired. There was a lot of fatigue. There was a lot of back pain, a lot of flank pain, a lot of abdominal pain. My abdomen was always on fire. I told my sister, walking is becoming a problem. Like, I don't enjoy walks. I don't enjoy lying on my back. I told her this has to be something more. And we went to see a specialist, a urologist, in July 2025. And I remember he asked for comprehensive tests. The comprehensive tests were done. Not really comprehensive, were they? Just an ultrasound. And I remember this doctor told me the same thing. Told me that I have an ovarian cyst that has recurred again, and that I have a bladder infection. And I told him, can it be something deeper than this? I was like, I've been sick since class 3. Can we do something else to check? And he was like, no, I'll just refer you to a gynecologist. I was like, oh, we've gone through this in 2023. So a urologist deals with the renal system. So if you have kidney issues, if you have bladder issues, you go see a urologist. They deal with the renal system only. And a gynecologist who been referred to several, they deal with the reproductive system, the female reproductive system. Going to a urologist and you find that you've been referred to a gynecologist, I remember most urologists told me that these two systems are quite close. They're neighbors. So if one is sick, there's a probability that the other one will get affected. So for me, I remember having that time of the month was quite painful, and it would also affect the neighbor, which was my bladder. My renal system would be on fire also. So I remember getting to a point, I remember going to see, my doctor and telling my doctor that for me, having a sick bladder, that time of the month for me also makes my bladder act up. And it's like they're neighbors, they're close friends. So one might cause the other to flare up or something. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So in campus, I did find myself being referred to a gynecologist. And this also happened now in 2025, where you've gone for an ultrasound. This doctor, when my urologist would ask for a pelvic ultrasound. So this pelvic ultrasound would give you a look into not only your bladder and your kidneys, but also your uterus and your ovaries. How healthy are they? Your cervix. So a pelvic ultrasound gives you a look into both. So that's why it was very easy for him to know that I need to refer you to this doctor or this gynecologist because clearly there's something wrong. So it was, yes. So they they marry each other. When it came to having sexual partners in campus, I stayed away. I abstained from having sexual partners. I did try. I had a partner. He was older. He was a friend to my sister. And I remember for me, sex was very different. It was extremely painful. So that first experience, it didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit well with me. And I decided to tell myself, no, let me give it another go. And I was like, you know what, your partner is understanding. I remember he was a very understanding person, and he would always ask questions. He's like, what did the doctor say? Is it okay to try again? And I was very open to trying again, but then I noticed that it got worse with every time we tried. It did get worse. Not only from my bladder flaring up for reasons unknown, infection, but also from ovarian cysts can be very unkind to anyone who's sexually active. So I remember at that time, that's when my doctor told me these two are they're very close to each other. Your urology system and your gynecology system. And I decided, let me take a break. Like this, I tried, it didn't work. I'm pretty sure I'm not hallucinating when I tell myself that this cannot be it. Like this can't be sexual encounters for everyone. I'm pretty sure it's not like this for every lady. And I decided to end the relationship and just take a break. I did not enjoy it. It was extremely painful. There was even bleeding after every time. Like I tried, I would end up going back. So every time you try, the following day you automatically have to go to hospital because you have to go and explain that there's bleeding, there's pain, you can barely walk. Yeah. And so I did take a break. And so the red flags kept piling up because you've gone from you're experiencing back pain, you're experiencing abdominal pain, and now sexual encounters are not normal. So when you go to hospital and you're not heard, no one really gets what you're saying. And I used to tell myself, is it that I'm not articulating myself well? What is happening? And I would tell myself, no, Jerry, you're not crazy. You're not making this stuff up, are you? And I would even ask my doctors, like, do you get such cases often? Like, am I like the only person who comes here to complain of these symptoms? And after the ultrasound that was done in 2025, July, and we've gone from bladder infection, ovarian cysts, here are antibiotics to help. I think I became a bit depressed. The internship that I had landed at the time, I put in my resignation letter in October 2025, and I was done because the commute was terrible for me. It got to a point where sitting became an extreme sport because it felt like someone was crushing my abdomen every time I sat. So sitting in meetings wasn't fun anymore. Commuting to work was not fun. Any movement was not fun for me. So I decided, let me rest. Like, it's never that serious. That time I think I had worked in about three companies, and I had not enjoyed my time working for these 3 companies because of the constant pain. So in That was in October 2025. That is why I decided to take a break from work. And my mom was not very happy. And I remember she told me, why didn't you consult me? And I told her, for the first time, I think I was just done. And I told her, it's my body and I'm the only one who carries this pain, really. No, and I don't think there's a day where I've been told, let me take some of the pain away to give you a break. It was a lot on one person. And the symptoms somehow got worse when I decided to take a break. I don't know how, but they did. How would I explain that level of pain? After resigning in October 2025, November and December were extremely terrible months health-wise. And I was not doing anything. I was resting. I was at home, but I was not sleeping. So mid-December, I told my sister, I feel like I'm going to die because these meds are not working. I feel like it was a feeling where I felt like the meds were even fighting me now. And I told my sister, something is very wrong. I told her it's the kind of pain that was very aggressive. It was very unforgiving. It was terrible. I could barely sleep. I remember the whole night I used to be up all night because I had to get like a hot compress, those hot water bottles, and I would be up all night because I had to, when the water gets warmer, you have to change. You have to like boil more hot water, make sure the compress is hot enough to battle that level of pain. And the meds I was on at the time, they had terrible side effects. You have nausea, you have dizziness, you can barely eat. My sister decided, you know what, Njeri looks extremely unwell. Let's look for another specialist in 2026 January. So we booked an appointment the first week of January. I didn't even book it. She had to book it. That is how I was in a terrible state that I would even zone out sometimes. It's all so foggy. I can tell you that December was very foggy because if I got a moment to take a nap, maybe a certain painkiller or muscle relaxer has worked, and I get to nap for 2 hours, I'd be out like a light, gone. And it became very foggy. And we did go to Aga Khan and decided to, consult a different urologist. And what stood out for me is I have been to that hospital several times, and this name was very new. I was like, I've never seen this name before. Maybe a fresh set of eyes would be able to tell us what's wrong. And for the first time, I know even younger Annkia was so happy. For the first time in forever, since I started experiencing pain as a child, I met someone who actually understood what I was saying. This person sat there, listened to me narrate what I have felt since class 3. He noted down everything. I told him, I have been to theater 5 times. He's like, 5? He listened and listened. I told him, I'm experiencing nausea, dizziness. I told him, I easily get tired all the time. And I told him, Daktari, I'm not lazy. I just get tired easily. I don't know why. And it's like, continue. It's like, I'm like back pain, abdominal pain. And I would tell him there's pain on my sides, and I told him my right side, I can't sleep on my right side. I can't sit on my right side. And he was like noting down everything. And after that, he was like, your symptoms, they're not normal. And I was like, thank you, God, thank you. I have been waiting all my life to hear there's nothing normal about this situation. And I told him, I have a history of ovarian cysts. I have a history of a couple of procedures in theater. I've seen this doctor and that doctor. And he was like, yes, he's a urologist too. But he was different and he was so kind and he listened. I felt like I was talking, due to lacking a proper father figure, but from my grandfather, I felt like talking to a father. He actually understood, and I was so happy. You can imagine, I was feeling relief, and he has not even given me medication. So this was the first person to say, it was like, you've come to me. This is also new to him. And he told me, you'll forgive me, but kindly be patient with me. And I told him, I'm going to be patient. I completely trust you. I don't know you, but I trust you. And he was like, since everything is so new, nothing is showing up in the ultrasound done in 2025, let's do another one. It was like, let's do a fresh ultrasound. Let's do blood work. And I was like, blood work? Tests I've never done. I'm like, let's do a liver test. Let's do a kidney function. Let's see how these organs are doing after years and years of antibiotics and infections. It was like, people are focusing on your blood. Has anyone ever checked your kidneys? I'm like, no. Even I got worried. I was like, oh, no one has ever done this for me. I was like, oh. And he was the first person to say, you've been on antibiotics for years and years. Are they not working because you're now resistant to them? I was like, no one has ever checked. And he said, let's do a sensitivity test. Let's see which antibiotics work for you now. I was like, oh my God, where has this person been all my life? I felt like hugging him and telling him thank you. And he gave me medication, but he did not give me strong antibiotics. He was like, let's start small. I'm not going to give you meds that will make you dizzy and nauseated. Let's start small. He was like, this will help with pain, but, just mild. I was like, it's okay. He has already told me to be patient. I'm going to be patient. And let me tell you, when we did the ultrasound in January this year, there was a tumor the size of a house in my bladder. Right there. It just dropped from nowhere. I remember we did the ultrasound, the pelvic ultrasound, and that's the person we found in that radiology department. This person turned the screen and he told me, did you know you have a tumor? I was like, no, I've never seen it. Like, I even told him I've done an ultrasound a couple of months ago. Where has it been? It was like, it's right here. It is crushing your right kidney. That's why there was a lot of pain on my right side. My right kidney was swollen. I was so shocked. My goodness. He even called like his colleague into the room and he was like, this is doctor something. I had to call him so that he can see what I'm seeing. And they discussed for a couple of minutes there. I just remember being shocked because I have never seen this tumor. Never been told I have a tumor. They asked me, did you know your right kidney was swollen? I told him I did not know. Did you know your left kidney is blocked? I did not know. No one has ever told me this. No one has ever done tests to check this. When they were done, nothing showed up. I remember they asked me who my doctor was, and I told them the name, and they were like, "You're in safe hands. Just take this to him. He'll know what to do next." And we went back to my doctor, and he was like, "I told you this is Annkia. I told you this is not normal. This is not a normal situation. Everything you mentioned here last time, this is just proof that there's something very wrong." And when we showed him the results, he was like, we need to act fast now because we don't know what this tumor is, but we do know that it's causing a lot of pain. So he said, let's do a scan. Let's see, is this tumor only inside the bladder? And if it's big, how big is it? Is it outside the bladder? Has it affected other areas? And we did go for a scan immediately with my sister. And unfortunately, found that the tumor was not only inside the bladder, but it had grown so much that it was even outside the bladder. And I was like, okay, well, this is proper hell. And we went back to my doctor. I was still in excruciating pain, in very aggressive pain. And when we did go back to my doctor. He was like, the following day, let's go to theater and let's remove part of this tumor and know what's happening. Like, is it benign? Is it benign? Is it malignant? Malignancy meaning cancer. So I was like, okay, that's not bad, is it? I was like, Annkia, you need to be very calm and be ready for the worst. Like, I was prepared for the worst. I was like, even if it's malignant, if it's a malignant tumor, meaning cancer, I was like, it's okay. I have faith in this doctor. I feel like even if it's cancer, he'll know what to do. And he took me to theater and put me on very nice medication. That was a very strong medication, like the likes of morphine. And I was in heaven. I would not recommend because it might get addicted, but I for the first time in a while, I was in zero pain. This doctor made sure I was in zero pain before going into theater. I was like, now we can go. Now it's go time. Let's go. We've put fentanyl, we've put morphine in your system. And I was so happy. Took me to theater. I recovered. And after recovery, we went back to see him. We went back to see a very sad face. He was not as bright as when I met him, my doctor. On this day, there were more people in his office. Immediately, I think your brain just registers that there can't be 5 people in the room to tell you don't have cancer. So I was like, oh well, here we are. And my mom was present that day and got into the office, and my doctor he didn't even say hi. He was just like, oh, welcome, have a seat. And I'm like, a couple of people in the room. And he said, I wish I had better news for you. Unfortunately, it's a cancerous tumor. I was like, zero emotion. I had zero emotion. I was like, yes, next. And he proceeds to say it's a rare cancer. So about 1 to 5% of the world population get this type of cancer. It's called squamous cell carcinoma of the bladder. I told him I've never had such. And he was like, it's okay because it's a rare cancer. Being rare means now you need a lot of people on board so that nothing goes wrong. So he was like, he was like, let's just put it plainly, it's bladder cancer. And he told me, this tumor it's not a young tumor. This tumor has been there. It has been cooking up. And for it to grow to that size where it has actually affected my reproductive system. So it did not only affect my bladder, it also affected my reproductive system. So he was like, it has been there. It's not new. And I was like, okay, next. Like, I just wanted to know, like, what is this person's game plan? You're a couple of people in this office. And I was like, whatever it is, I am ready. Because if we are here and we are talking about it, that means that someone in this room might have a solution, and I'm very ready to hear the solution. Actually, throw a couple of solutions at me. Throw plan A, plan B. I am open to it. Is it chemo? Is it surgery? Very open to it. And we had to give my mom a couple of minutes, of course, to digest the news. And my doctor reassured her. But I can tell you for a fact that not even a single drop, just a teardrop, nothing. Like, I was completely numb. I don't know if I was scared. I do not know why, but I did not respond to this news. What I was looking forward to is for someone to tell me, we do have a plan in place. What would have scared me, and I would have broke down and cried my eyes out, is someone telling me it's too late. Now that you don't want to hear that, unfortunately, it's too late. We cannot do much for you. When he said that, they sat down and they came up with a plan. I was so happy. I was like, oh God, there's hope. There's room for me to actually have a normal life. And after years and years of medications and doctors, you're actually happy to have a final diagnosis. Like you're no longer we're no longer moving with the news of narrow urethra or ovarian cysts. There's just a tumor that has been seated in your abdomen, affecting your bladder and your reproductive system. I was so happy. I was relieved. I was like, finally, someone took time, listened to me, and said, we have to do more comprehensive tests. This is not normal. Now it was beginning like the treatment plan. Being a urologist, he could not work on his own. So he asked me for permission to present my case to the tumor board in their hospital. So these people, specialists who treat cancer, that is oncologists, they are present. A team of, that is a board of 30 people get to decide what will happen. I was like, okay, now what do you need for, so that you present my case? So that meant more tests have to be done. You have to do an MRI to know which stage the cancer is. You have to do something called a PET scan, where, can I really explain what a PET scan does? A PET scan is done to ensure that the cancer cells in your body, for me, especially, for my case, they had to ensure that the cancer cells are only in the abdomen. So this test is done, it's like a full body scan, so that before they start treatment, they have to make sure that there are no cancer cells in your lungs or your liver. They are only present where they, just the abdomen. So before they start, they have to make sure we are only concentrating on the abdomen. We are not dealing with lung cancer. We're not dealing with colon cancer. We're like just bladder cancer. And that was it. I was like, okay, that's fine. So with this test, he was able to present my case. And even with presenting this case, this doctor was kind enough to talk to them about welfare support. So he told them that this is a young lady, currently jobless. He talked to them and he was able to convince them that in case of treatment like chemo, they can cover. I can get to undergo free chemo. They have a free chemo program. So I was not aware. We got a call from the welfare support people in Aga Khan, and they were like, your doctor has put in a request for you. So we need, bank statements, M-Pesa statements, just to make sure how much we can cover. Like, they want to know how much we can cover and how much they can do for me. And I was like, oh my God, this person is heaven sent. So this is something he did when he presented the case to the tumor board. He decided, also he didn't want to do, what made me happy also is that this person was not doing things blindly. So he got a gynecologist on board, because he was like, if it has affected your reproductive system, we need to find someone who will take care of that. And he also got like one of the oncologists on board also, so that he doesn't do things blindly. He gets to consult them. And I got to meet all of them. And after the tumor board discussed, I was very anxious, because we knew that the next appointment would be told it's either we are doing chemo, we're doing radiotherapy, or it's surgery. We have to get rid of a couple of organs that are affected together with the tumor. And I was like, okay, that's fine. None of these options are easy. I come from a family where cancer is genetic. So when you tell me the options, I have seen for myself the effects of these options. So when he went to present the case to the tumor board, of course, I was asked a million questions. This oncologist asked me a million questions. This gynecologist asked me a million questions. And so did my doctor. And in the process, they realized cancer is common in my mom, in my family, especially my mom's side, my maternal side. And for us, we've never really thought much about it. And for them, they were like, this is a very important point. It was like, this might be a genetic abnormality that caused cancer at 25. And that is why I was explaining to them. I was like, oh, my bad. And I was telling them I am probably the sixth cancer patient in my family now. And what really caught their attention is that my grandma my grandmother, that is on my mom's side, she passed away about 3 years ago due to cancer. It was like due to genetics, might have gotten it from her. And they even they were asking questions about around my mom, her siblings, and her cousins, if either of them has ever been affected. And they were even advising, can they go get tested as early as now? So of course they were asking the age of the patient and the type of cancer. And for me it was unique because, of course, not in a good way. But for my grandmother, they were older. My grandmother was in her 70s, and for her it was colon cancer. So colon cancer is the one that's very common in my mom's side. On my mom's side, and for me, for me it was like, you've had a sick bladder, so probably this is why it was very easy for it to be a host to these cells. And I was like, okay. When you're thinking chemotherapy, I have seen members of my family who are still undergoing chemotherapy. So the anxiety comes with, you have seen the effects of all these options. I have seen the effects of someone who has undergone surgery. To lose a couple of organs is not easy. I have seen my grandma who underwent surgery and didn't make it after the surgery. And I realized not even the cancer that kills you, it's just the pain it causes. And I was like, okay. And I even before they told me, I already knew that radiotherapy is the most painful form of cancer treatment. It cooks your organs. Just radiation, you're exposed to radiation, and it ends up even cooking the organs that it was not supposed to cook. They decided, Annkia is young, she can handle surgery. Let's do the first, like, it was the first time they did this type of surgery in Aga Khan. And I was like, I'm a guinea pig. That's not bad, is it? I was like, okay, that's not stressful.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. That was part 2 of Annkia's story. The final part 3, goes out next week on Monday on this show. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on it. I feel like one thing that stayed with me after listening to part 2 was how life-changing it can be to truly be listened to. And it's so unfortunate that very many African women or Black women, the stats show this, are not listened to in healthcare, in hospitals. Like, even just something like pain, it's assumed we're overreacting. Like, no, you're okay. Even when you're saying, bro, I'm dying, this pain is a lot. The research shows that Black women are often ignored, not listened to, not taken seriously in healthcare spaces, like in hospitals or by healthcare practitioners. I remember seeing this TikTok of a woman who said that she went to see a gynecologist, a guy, and I think she wanted an IUD placed in her or something. There was a procedure that needed to be done. And it wasn't surgery or anything, but she did ask the receptionist and the nurse, like, okay, so what's the pain policy here? Like, do you numb me when I'm undergoing this process? And they were like, no, the pain, like, the policy here is that you don't get numb for that. The doctor said that. The doctor is a guy who's never experienced this particular procedure because it is primarily and only for women, right? But yeah, we just don't get listened to. And once you find a doctor who listens, it's such a relief, right? A doctor who sees you. I mean, for years, Annkia was like, something is not right. Can you imagine having to explain your symptoms over and over and over? And it feels like people are not taking it seriously. Imagine if they listened when she was younger and how early they would have caught the tumor. And honestly, I think that's the takeaway I'm sitting with for this story. It's just like, never underestimate what it means to listen to people when they tell you they're in pain. Whether it's a child, a friend, a partner, a patient, or even you yourself. Don't dismiss your own pain, Because like, healing can truly just start properly when someone says, I hear you. And my goodness, her resilience is just something else. Despite everything she endured, Annkia never stopped searching for answers, and in part 3, we speak treatment and we speak where she is now. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on part 3. It's the final part, which will be out next Monday. If Annkia's story resonated with you, please share this with somebody who you feel needs to hear it. But also, if you want to share your story, you're African, your story is valid and we want to hear it. Fill out our storyteller form. A link to it is in the show notes. One of our correspondents is going to get back to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode to the very end. I truly appreciate you. I truly believe that you have every single thing it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.